So, some we're going to discuss it on meeting.
Yeah.
Whether we should approach it, see what they, I think, no, according to Mary, they do handle it down. But I don't, she knows more about them than I do. There are a lot more.
Good.
So anyway, that's one, kind of our last step, I think, in
So the Catholic Church is 501c3, and our endowment, no matter who invests it, like in the past, the band managed to Vanguard, that's another issue.
Yeah.
Maybe it should be.
Yeah, Mary is concerned. Pretty good crowd today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's their first time back, so.
Oh, nice. Unexpected. The lady up there.
Yes. I started with this coffee. I figured out that. Like I can't move 2 feet. So.
You better drink fast.
I can go back and get it.
Yeah.
Some people here used to bring it to me, but COVID's changed everything.
Yeah. That's right.
But now if I go back during the song, I feel like Pakistani. I feel it's a little rude, But I may do that.
That's right. Good idea. I really liked your sermon. I thought it was excellent.
Thank you.
And especially that whole thing about the algorithm sticks very much. And there's a podcast called The Rabbit Hole that describes that phenomenon. So we recommend having a listen to this. Yeah.
Well, it's nice that they are trying to fix the problem.
Exactly.
That's the good news.
It is good news.
It's not we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over until better.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. We're gonna keep on till we find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. And we're gonna keep on till we find it. There is more hope somewhere. And there is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. And we're gonna keep on till we find it. There is more peace somewhere. And there is more joy somewhere.
keep on till we find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Good morning. Welcome. Good morning. There you are. Good morning. Yay. Excellent response. That's the way to do it. When someone says good morning, you say good morning, right? Thank you for modeling that for us. And welcome to you. Welcome to all of you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we say in short, to create... Boy, I'm sorry I botched that one. I always want to transpose them. I'm going to say it one more time in unison because that was pretty bad. Create community, find meaning, and work for justice. I think I'm just going to get a pen and scribble into the wood here. Create community. That way I'll remember. CFW. I like that. Now I have to remember that. One more thing to remember. By the way, you notice I'm wearing a handkerchief. Not quite as flamboyant as Donna wanted me to. Where's Donna? So, Donna Borden Rhodes, who was married to Dick Borden, who passed away too long ago now. Longtime member of this church, and really. Dick just turned into a really good friend for me really quickly, early in my ministry. And he was such a wise man that I really missed him over the years. And I think about him a lot. And one of the many things Dick did in his life, he was he had a framing company. And so he and Donna gave us a poster, a movie poster, that is beautifully framed, and it's signed by all the actors in it. It was one of the pirate movies, Pirates of the Caribbean, right? All the actors signed it. We have this beautifully framed. So I get to think of Dick every day, really, when I see that. But he used to wear these silk scarves, famously, to church, and she's given me all of his scarves, beginning today. So you're going to start seeing a little bit of Dick in our services again on Sunday morning. So thank you so much. But I wanted to just bring Dick up because I loved him so much and miss him. And on that subject, I do want to point out that our unity candle is lighted again here at the front of our sanctuary, which is something we do when we've lost a church member during the week. And I told you last week the sad news that Myrtle Ladich had suddenly passed away quite unexpectedly. Last night, her husband, Mike, also passed away after a brief stay in the hospital. Obviously, their daughters, Marina and Elena, are devastated, as is much of their family. So please keep them in your thoughts at this time. And we want to light this candle as a symbol of Mike's light and his laughter and everything that he meant. I know a lot of you didn't get to know Mike. He had to quit coming the past few years, but another wonderful human being. So I miss him greatly. Also wanted to let you know this morning that our community auction donation deadline has been extended by 1 week. Oh, good? Good. I'm glad to hear some say good. We would like to get a few more donations before we close it, but we do have to, once it's closed, so we're going to give you one more week. If you haven't been able to make a donation yet, we would appreciate it. This is a great fundraiser for our community, as well as a lot of fun getting together, doing things, sharing baked goods and events and lessons and crafts and these sort of things. So you can look for ideas on our church website if you would like to. So thanks again in advance. I want to give you one more week to do so. And thanks to all of those who have been able to contribute already. So another chance. And we are also still in the midst of our volunteer fair, seeking volunteers and hoping to encourage you to look at some areas or new areas that you might be able to be involved in, want to be involved in service to our community. And there's no greater group to be involved in, I think, than the Spokane Alliance, and no better person to share with you what exactly I'm talking about than Karen Dorn-Steele.
Thanks, Todd. In my years as an investigative reporter, I often saw the world at its worst. Political dysfunction, government secrecy, the growing wealth gap. But when I retired in 2009, I wanted to act directly and locally on these problems. I was quickly drawn to the Spokane Alliance, a nonpartisan group of 37 organizations representing over 20,000 people, including our church. I was intrigued by this group's efforts to achieve real institutional change and the tough love philosophy expressed by its founder, labor organizer Saul Alinsky, who said, "Never do for someone what they can do for themselves." I've also loved the community building techniques nurtured in small group sessions. How many meetings have you been to where you've shared views with a union pipe fitter, an overworked nurse, and a homeless person looking for permanent shelter? I learned in my first training session that organizing always starts with the world as it is, moving to create the world as it should be, an effort that always comes with significant pushback, and that's why it takes so long to create real change. 5 years ago, I was elected Spokane Alliance co-president. We saw an opportunity to work with our city council to press for several significant reforms, including a mental health diversion center to keep the mentally ill out of jail, and the city's first ever sick and safe leave law, which provided earned sick leave for over 40,000 low-income workers here in Spokane. Some of you who are here today were at that meeting at City Council on the night that ordinance passed over the objection of then Mayor David Condon. Our annual church dues to the Spokane Alliance help us achieve these successes by leveraging our power in the community. But we need people power in addition to money. And I'm here today to ask you to consider joining the UUCS Spokane Alliance team, a task which Lynn Janician and I have carried on during the pandemic. Our team helps bring Spokane Alliance actions into our church with discussions and then turnout for actions on homelessness, housing, criminal justice reform, tax fairness, and other issues. We also conduct one-on-one relational meetings to build community within our church, a process that has been hindered by the pandemic. As you know, it takes work to live up to our UUCS motto, create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Please let me know if volunteering for the Spokane Alliance is something you'd consider this year. I have brochures and a sign-up sheet at the back of the hall, and I'll be there after the service. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and so well said. And I think that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Alliance that you point out, is that they're willing to put in the time it takes to actually make effective change in our community. So many times we want to react to injustices by going to the streets and pointing out who the bad guys are, and sometimes that's okay, sometimes it's not okay, but sometimes that's necessary. But it's really ultimately ineffective if we're not also finding ways to make real change. And what the Alliance does by building those alliances from groups that normally don't have a lot in common allows us to put the hard work in and the patience necessary to actually create structural changes, rules, laws, those sort of things that make systemic changes. And it's been very rewarding to see a few accomplishments over the years, but big accomplishments that are lasting. So, okay, let's take a few moments to greet one another. I think we have time today, so say hi to those that you look forward to seeing, as always, on Sundays, and make some new friends today. If you're visiting with us, we're glad you're here. Please don't be too shy. We're a friendly bunch. Hey, Pumpkin. How are you? I like your dress. Right now, he's telling this singer happy birthday.
I am good, and I wanted to...
Okay, and as always, there'll be more opportunity to visit during our social hour, so I hope you'll stay for that. Let's move on now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Yale history professor Timothy Snyder's powerful 2017 book, On Tyranny, warned us about the Trump presidency and continuing attacks on our democracy. Snyder offers 20 lessons from the 20th century to describe why we are still in peril and what we can do about it. Chapter 10, Believe in Truth, starts this way. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power because there is no basis upon which to do so. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. Snyder lists 4 warning signs. 1, open hostility to verifiable reality or presenting lies as if they were facts. Trump, who Snyder said created a fictional counterworld, was a master at this. 2, endless repetition, which makes the lies more palatable, with deliberate use of insults and chants, such as Crooked Hillary or Stop the Steal. 3, magical thinking, such as promising lower taxes and wiping out the national debt while spending lavishly on defense and social programs. Number 4, misplacing faith, where the leader becomes a savior who declares, "I alone can fix it," a tactic that also brought Hitler to power in the 1930s. Now, we know that George Orwell also warned of these dangers 70 years ago with his description of doublethink, a post-truth fascist society. The fascists of the 1930s, Snyder writes, despised the small truths of daily existence, loved slogans that resonated like a new religion, and preferred creative myths to history or journalism. They used new media, which at the time was radio, to create a drumbeat of propaganda that aroused feelings before people had time to ascertain truth. He warns us, post-truth is pre-fascism.
In order to individually counter the things that Karen just talked about, it's very important to be centered and rooted in our own belief systems and to come at it from that stance instead of just bouncing around in reaction. And that's what our first hymn of the morning is about. It's called Blessed Spirit of My Life. It's about being centered, and it's number 86 if you would like to use your hardback hymnal. Otherwise, please stand as you're willing and able.
We are now going to kindle our candles for those who are most on our hearts and minds. And again, we want to kindle a candle for Marina and Elena and the entire Ladich family at this difficult time in their lives. We kindle a candle this morning for Marion Hennings, one of our members who's dealing with some serious health concerns at this time, and welcomes your caring thoughts and best wishes. For church member Tom Schmidt, who is also dealing with health issues and is currently at Holy Family Hospital. For church member and board member Betsy Rush, who is back home in the South with her father, who's in the hospital dealing with pneumonia. And Peggy, my spouse's cousin's husband, Dan Copeland, is also in the hospital there with some very serious related complications from COVID, so please keep their family in your thoughts too. And then I want to end the list that I have on a positive note, because I understand today is a certain individual's birthday in this building. Is that right? Is it Brooklyn's birthday today? I was told that by a little bird. Maybe we could sing Brooklyn Happy Birthday. What do you think, Deb?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brooklyn. Happy birthday to you.
And many more. Hope you have a great day. Let's take just a moment of silence on behalf of others you might be thinking of, and you'd be welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And it is now time for this morning's offering, which we gratefully receive as it sustains our mission to this community and our mission to the larger world.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome the children and the young at heart to come up for our time for all ages today. Look who's with us. It's Bun Bun. He hasn't been here for a while, and some of you might be meeting Bun Bun for the first time. Well, Bun Bun, it's really good to see you. It has been a while. Since we last saw you, a lot of these kids have gone to school. How about you? Are you back at school? That's great to hear. How's it going? Okay, he says a little bad, a little good. We call those peaks and valleys in Children's Chapel. Sometimes good things happen in our day and sometimes bad things happen in our day, right? What's one of the peaks or the good things, Bun Bun? Oh, that does sound like fun. He said math games. How many of you like doing math games at school? Yeah? How about any of the grown-ups? Do you like math games too? Excellent. Well, Bun Bun, what's not going well at school? Well, that's kind of funny. He said lunch. Most kids that I know really like lunch, and I would assume that would be the same for bunnies too. Is lunch too short? No. Is it too long? No. Well, what's going on? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. You said there's a pizza fight going on at school. Do you mean like people are throwing pizza at each other? Oh, it's not that kind of fight. It's a kind of fight where apparently there's some bunnies who like pizza with olives, and there are other bunnies who like pizza with pineapple. Really? He said they even sit on different sides of the cafeteria. And they call them names. Oh, but I can't say that in church, Bun Bun. Yikes, this sounds like a lot of conflict. I remember last time you were here, you, I think, had some kind of conflict over cookies and your neighbors. It doesn't feel good to fight with people about things, does it? Oh, okay, he wants us to know that he's on the side of olives. Bun Bun, why do you think that is? Okay. He's on the olive side because his mother likes olives, his father likes olives, his brothers and sisters like olives, his cousins like olives, his aunts and uncles. Basically, all of your friends and family like olives. Okay. Oh, and he watches an olives-only bunny bake-off show on TV. Interesting. So, Bun Bun, what do you suppose is the case for the people who like pineapple on their pizza? He's thinking. I bet you're right. I bet that the kids, or the bunnies, who like pineapple on their pizza live with family members and friends who also like pineapple, and I bet they watch the pineapple-only bunny bake-off TV show. So, Bun Bun, sometimes when we're with people who do the same things that we do, and when we watch the same shows as they do, we kind of get stuck with one opinion, and we start to think that that opinion is the better opinion. So I'm going to challenge you to do something, Bun Bun. Okay, he's nodding his head. He's up for it. Bun Bun, will you try eating pizza with olives and pineapple? He said maybe. Well, I can't wait to hear how it goes, and we'll see you next time. Can you wave to everyone? All right. Bye, Bun Bun. And now I'll invite all of you to help me sing out the children to our Children's Chapel for today.
For today's meditation, I ask you to turn inward as I turn to the wisdom in Terry Tempest Williams's book, Finding Beauty in a Broken World. Our survival depends on mental flexibility and mental acuity Hands raised, hands put to work. We can improvise. We can create without a map, and we don't have to live in isolation. Finding beauty in a broken world becomes more than the art of assemblage. It is the work of daring contemplation that inspires action.
This is a paragraph from an article I read this week that I'm going to be referring to in my sermon in a few minutes. You'll recognize some of it then when it's repeated. The key to breaking the stranglehold of ideological conformity is to keep dissenting speech alive. Raise your voice, for public speech is the power that allows one to break the bonds of loneliness. It tells others, and the victims of cancellation specifically, that they are not alone. Do not allow your colleagues or your student or your friend to be the only oppositional or dissenting voice in the room. It is important to declare allegiance, even if only to make clear that you agree to disagree rather than to silence. Stand by people with whom you disagree to show that dissent is the essence of freedom and pluralism. You must show that. Whatever threats are issued, the oppressor does not own your mind. And if many demonstrate that the oppressors do not own their minds, the oppressors will soon find they own nothing. In this way, and in this way only, can we oppose tyranny as a community rather than as desperately isolated individuals.
One month ago today, I had a contentious conversation in my gym about people being unmasked. I asked to see a supervisor. The supervisor was foursquare of the opinion that those that were unmasked had all the rights. I found myself in a pretty tough place. I kept saying my truth, but it was obviously not getting through. And in the end, in my mind, I had enemified that person. Well, I thought about this a lot. It was very, very upsetting. And I certainly wasn't pleased with her behavior, but I was not pleased with mine either. So I looked for things to help me live my values better. And I'm still thinking about it and trying to act differently. I found this little chant that I had known for many years in a book that I bought in 1989. And I want to sing it to you this morning to give you courage to speak up, but the wisdom to keep a clear connection with your so-called enemy. Let's see if I can manage to sing this. Let us see the holy presence in those we call our enemies. Let us see divine and perfect love shining in their hearts. If we see this vision clearly, then the shadows can be transformed. we will see the light within, and our fellowship can be reborn. Let us see the holy presence in those we call our enemies. Let us see divine and perfect love shining in their hearts. If we see this vision clearly, then the shadows can be transformed. We will see the light within, and the shadows can be transformed. Let us see the holy presence in those we call our enemies. Let us see divine and perfect love shining in their hearts. If we see this vision clearly, then the shadows can be transformed. We will see the light within, and our fellowship can be reborn. We can see the light within, and the fellowship can be reborn.
Thank you. That's okay, Deb. It just made it all the more, so thank you. Yep. We appreciate your vulnerability. So I'm going to begin today by clarifying what I mean by today's title, Regaining Sanity in an Insane World, because there are a couple of uses of the word insane. One is just in loose reference to something that is extreme, right? The prices at that half-off sale are insane, or that roller coaster ride was insane, you know. We can also use it in loose reference to something we don't believe or to someone we disagree with. That's insane, or he must be insane. But the other formal use is in reference to a state of mind, as the Oxford Dictionary says, which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. Seriously mentally ill. So I wanted to be clear that when I refer to an insane society, I'm not using it in the vernacular. I really mean our society, like much of Western society today, has gone insane in the formal sense of the word. Not because there are a lot of outlandish things being said that I happen to disagree with, but because as a society we have accepted a mindset that prohibits far too many of us from accepting the reality of normal perception, and that greatly hampers our ability to meaningfully interact with others and our world. That's the definition of formal insanity. It was back in 1955 in his book, The Sane Society, that social psychologist Erich Fromm first raised the question, can a society be sick? It could have been a revolutionary question if more people had paid attention. Just imagine what might have followed if psychologists began focusing as much on our collective societal ills as they do on individuals. And if they had studied and identified symptoms, the symptoms indicating that a particular society or group is mentally ill and needs treatment. Back then, Fromm noticed that 3 potential indicators, homicides, suicides, and alcoholism, were all higher in the U.S. than in the rest of the world. In these terms, he said, "We find that the countries in Europe, which are among the most democratic, peaceful, and prosperous ones, and the United States, the most prosperous country in the world, show the most severe symptoms of mental disturbance." Although he understood that many psychiatrists and psychologists, in his words, refused to entertain the idea that a society as a whole may be lacking in sanity, Fromm also pointed out that Sigmund Freud himself often used terms like social neurosis and compared the evolution of civilization with the development of an individual, saying that many systems of civilization or epics of it, possibly even the whole of humanity, have become neurotic. Freud even hoped that one day someone might venture upon what he said, this research into the pathology of civilized communities. Although I am not a psychologist, and to date there is not a diagnostic statistical manual for diagnosing the mental illnesses of an entire society, I am serious when I say that we are living in an insane society. I'm not basing this opinion on current rates of murder, suicide, or alcoholism, but on the basis that too many of us are unmoved by empirical facts and are incapable of healthy social interactions. This insanity goes on unabated by those in its grip precisely because it is expressed and condoned within a societal context, which has the effect of making it seem perfectly sane. When an entire group or society is sick, Fromm says it suffers from the pathology of normalcy, rendering its members incapable of recognizing the madness of their own unsound beliefs and destructive behaviors. Fromm called this consensual validation, meaning the members of such an insane group or society assume the fact that the majority of people share certain ideas and feelings proves the validity of these ideas and feelings. These days, however, in our society, there is seldom one opinion on matters shared by everyone. So we compound our insanity by not engaging in meaningful relationship or discourse with those outside of our mindset, which is why we segregate increasingly into groups that dislike and feel threatened by other groups. Otherwise, they might challenge, even tempt us to question our assumptions. When such insanity is confronted from within the group, we rush to invalidate, isolate, and ultimately remove the challenger from our midst. And if that fails, we ourselves split off to form our own group where our collective insanity cannot be challenged, while demonizing the evil others who betrayed our sacred beliefs and ran us off. For example, I saw a video on YouTube this week in which a small group of anti-maskers intentionally raided a Trader Joe's store without mask on in Santa Cruz, California, where masks, of course, are required. The group of about a dozen individuals cuts past those waiting in line outside for their turns to properly enter the store. Once inside, they are immediately asked by the staff to put masks on or to leave, but they refuse. Before long, some of the upset customers start shouting at them, considering themselves freedom advocates, as they say, and repeatedly declaring their right to shop in the private store without mask on. They ignore the request to wear a mask or leave, start grabbing items from the shelves, get in line to pay with cash, and when they are refused service, they drop the cash on the counter and walk away with the goods anyway. The video on YouTube placed there by this group shows that they are delighted by the chaotic reaction to their antics and ends with images of a calm grocery store in Florida where nobody, not even the workers, are wearing masks. It's as if they were blaming the turmoil that they provoked on wearing masks by contrasting it with a no-mask grocery store in a state with one of the highest rates of coronavirus in the country, as well as the highest number of deaths. As if that bears no meaning. To me, this is the epitome of insanity, a state of mind which prevents normal perception, behavior, or social interaction. Seriously mentally ill, as the Oxford Dictionary says. Yet they were so certain of their own sanity and rightness that they intentionally recorded themselves for the purpose of showing the whole world the crazy responses of the shoppers and staff inside, believing that every one of us would cheer what they have done. Equally as relevant as this, however, is the reason that the video came across my attention on YouTube to begin with. I have no particular interest in watching the insane behaviors of people who refuse to wear masks. What I do watch occasionally are moderate progressives like John McWhorter and Jordan Peterson, who are outspoken opponents of the illiberal mindset that is overtaking liberal institutions in our society, including that of our own religion, the Unitarian Universalist Association. The algorithms written to keep my attention on YouTube predict that I must therefore prefer conservatism, and are now flooding my YouTube page with right-wing video suggestions. I bring this up now because this is part of the consensual validation that is making our society so insane today. The echo chambers that we find ourselves in nowadays are not merely of our own making. They're not limited to the small groups that we associate with in our spare time. We are surrounded by increasingly expanding isolated bubbles of information, confirming our biases because we are constantly tethered to devices designed to hold our attention. If it is possible for societies, communities, and groups to be insane, inasmuch as they are unable to accept reality and relate appropriately with others, then many have surely been insane in the past, as any honest review of history will prove. But today, such insanity is arguably worse than ever because it can so quickly become widespread through the use of social media, while also making it easier to use our devices to isolate ourselves from those with different thoughts. This is not necessarily a new problem, author Clive Thompson writes in his book Coders. In America, for example, the national conversation has struggled with people's propensity to focus on fripperies and abject nonsense ever since the early years of the Republic, when newspapers were filled with lurid made-up scandals. But algorithmatized rankings have pushed this long-standing problem into metabolic overdrive. Thompson goes on to point out a 2018 study by techno-sociologist Zeynep Tufekci, who found that YouTube's recommendations tend to over-distill the preferences of users, pushing them toward the extreme edges of virtually any subject. By way of example, Thompson writes, after watching jogging videos, she found the recommendation algorithm suggested increasingly intense workouts such as ultramarathons. Vegetarian videos led to ones of hardcore veganism. And you can watch Tufekci in a TED Talk, I think a couple of TED Talks explaining more about her findings and her concerns. Her research explains why, by simply watching a couple of moderate progressives speak against wokeism on the far left, YouTube thinks that I might also enjoy a gang of reckless thugs raid a Trader Joe's just to torment those wearing masks. I didn't enjoy it, and had I known in advance what it was I was about to watch, I would not have watched it, because I really try to avoid algorithmic direction. But even if I could avoid all such videos or tweets or Facebook ads in favor of only those that I do agree with, guess what? These algorithms will still drive me towards extremism, albeit the extremism on the far left. In an outstanding essay in Quillette magazine last week entitled "The Good Death, Cancel Culture and the Logic of Torture," comparing the punitive behavior of today's extreme left to the public executions of pre-industrial Europe, philosopher and historian Christoph van Ecke writes that reality and truth are decreed by ideology rather than established through the conventions of empirical research and a rational exchange of views. Empirical research and a rational exchange of views, right? There's that twin symptoms of insanity again. Avoidance of normal factual data and the ability to relate to others, or inability. And this inability to recognize, let alone cope, with empirical reality is again a symptom of genuine madness, as Van Ecke says. This is the human condition in a world of absolute relativity of facts and values, except its own, of course. It is a world in which nothing is certain except the dictates of the mob, and where anything is possible except the commonsensical and empirically testable. It is a world in which lonely people, teachers, students, writers, and basically anyone who is terrified of the consequences of dissent or perceived insensitivity are made to live in an alternative reality where there is no more recourse to facts. It is a world governed by the only thing that remains when objective truth falls away: power. Yet technology is but a tool, and as such, it is but an extension of our humanity. What's happening on social media today, whether unsubstantiated conspiracy theories about election fraud on the right, the attribution of every evil to whiteness or whiteness to every evil on the far left, or the unfounded fear of vaccinations from some at the end of both extremes, are the unintended consequences of using these new tools, as is smashing a thumb when trying to hammer a nail. Nobody intends to do that, but it happens. We know, for example, that Facebook's stated mission is to connect the world. We also know the company was not pleased with the election of Donald Trump in 2016. Immediately afterward, an internal Facebook group arose, stating the result of the 2016 election show that Facebook has failed in its mission. Now, the disturbing issue of such a powerful company having a mission that involves electing a specific president aside, we'll save that for another sermon, I'd say they missed the nail by a long shot, and they smashed a lot of thumbs in the process. In reality, Facebook did as much as any organization, if not more, to get Trump elected by allowing known lies to spread on his platform. Not only during that election period, but for years, perpetuating the conspiracy-minded insanity, the extremism. The radical right-wing conspiracy group QAnon, for example, went from being a fringe group to having millions of members because they were able to connect and pull themselves together on the social media platform. Just as some of those involved in the raid on the Capitol on January 6th were able to use the platform to organize their ill-fated demonstrations. In a 2020 article in The Guardian says, new and established QAnon groups on Facebook are growing at a rapid pace and helping to spread the baseless and dangerous conspiracy theory to new countries around the world. If, as Einstein is supposed to have said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, it would be truly insane if these social media giants continue or are allowed to continue enabling and fostering such madness. Fortunately, Facebook has been purging QAnon groups and misinformation on its platforms. Twitter began removing false claims about vaccines a year ago, and you probably heard just this week that YouTube announced that it is also banning misinformation about vaccines. So these are positive steps in the right direction. But we're going to need to do a lot more to regain our collective insanity. In his previously mentioned article, Van Ecke has 3 good suggestions. A first way of resisting the lethal cultural logic of torture would be to refuse it an audience, he says. Because the success of public cancellations depend upon an audience. This means publicly expressing our disapproval of such occurrences, and for businesses, employers, and administrators to stand up against the mobs by refusing to fire those whom they have targeted. Ignore calls to boycott stores exposed by shame, Van Ecke says. Continue to attend performances by artists who have been called out. Read books considered toxic. Socialize with colleagues who've been marked out as falling short of the latest moral standard. Secondly, he says, since the participation of the victim is crucial to good execution, we must also as individuals resist shame if we become the target of the mob. This means not apologizing for our dissents. Do not follow the script, he says. Rejecting shame and guilt is central to defeating the psychological torture practices of the cancellation mob. Be defiant. Refuse to die a good death. Bullies tend to move on from victims who do not play by their rules. And thirdly, he says we must all publicly speak up against the mobbing. The key to breaking the stranglehold of ideological conformity is to keep dissenting speech alive. Raise your voice, for public speech is the power that allows one to break the bonds of loneliness. It tells others and the victims of cancellation specifically that they are not alone. Do not allow your colleagues or your student or your friend to be the only oppositional or dissenting voice in the room. To these 3 excellent responses, I would add what I consider to be the most important means of countering the current insanity in our society. Because I believe this madness, including the desire for power, is fundamentally rooted in paranoia. Paranoia being unsubstantiated fear. We must help our society find calm and peace of mind. To do so, our liberal religious tradition, rooted in humanistic theology and ethics, is already well equipped to administer the right therapy. For all the fear and paranoia in our society is ultimately rooted in our fear of others. Others who have different ideas about the world, leading to different ways of doing things. So such fear always leads first to controlling speech, the expression of ideas in order to hold power over how things are done. To claim the right to such authority, we must first convince ourselves those holding the different, dangerous, harmful ideas are not only wrong-headed but wrong-hearted. They must be demonized before we can justify publicly executing them, figuratively speaking, these days, of course. So our task as Unitarians, who believe in the fundamental goodness, right, the humanistic theology, we believe in the fundamental goodness and potential for goodness in all human beings, is to foster trust of others throughout our society. When we encounter such fear, we must, like the angels, bring a message that begins, "Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Don't worry. Don't worry." There is much to worry about in our society and in the world these days, as is the case for every generation. Sure, some of our worries are unprecedented, but this is not, as so many other religions teach, the fault of the innate and unpreventable evil within every human heart. These worries are caused rather by the unexpected consequences of our own creativity, of our own beauty. And together, the same curiosity and inventiveness that is innate within us can lead to creative solutions, to beautiful solutions. But only if we can come together as a human family rather than letting algorithms and extremists accentuate our fears by driving us further apart. I think this spirit is what's indicated in most of the videos YouTube suggests that I watch. I'm often moved to tears. I mean, it's like my religious experience to watch inspiring performances on talent shows from around the world. Not so much by the performances, but by these large audiences, eager to cheer and encourage and support the performers, especially the most timid performers, those who look the least likely to be able to offer something profound. And yet those are the ones they give special attention to, ready to leap to ovations and to boo the judges who criticize them. That's the humanity I see, one in which people want to support each other. I mean, that's 12 individuals raiding the Trader Joe's and thousands of people giving ovations to people with stage fright. That's our innate nature, not sin, not evil. I also get a lot of prank videos suggested, brought to my attention, because I love to laugh at people responding to the wonders and surprises of life, and to see the joy and gratitude that follows their initial shock. A potted plant that reaches out to grab you as you pass it on the street. A snowman who suddenly turns his face to look at you. Or loudly flatulating in front of you on an escalator. How quickly we can recover our senses by helping each other laugh and find joy together. I also get a lot of videos showing ordinary people helping those in distress, in need. One of my recent favorites is of a senior citizen trying to pay for his groceries with a lot of change. But he keeps getting confused and is holding up the line. Most of those in line don't get angry or move off to another line. When he apologizes, they respond, "I'm in no hurry. Take your time. I have all day." And eventually they offer to help him, and when it turns out that he doesn't have enough, they give him the rest of what he needs, including one man who just lost his job and is all but broke himself. That's the humanity that I see almost everywhere. That's the sane society that I want to be part of. So be not afraid.
Well, our final hymn is actually a new one. I think it's a good new one. And it's 133, Our World, if you care to look at a hardback hymnal for it. Of course, our words will be on the screen up here. Dixie will play that melody before we sing it, and then she'll play it with us the first time so you can kind of climb onto it. Please rise as you're willing and able.
Let us part today with the words of Unitarian Minister Duke Gray. The blessing of truth be upon us, the power of love direct us and sustain us, and may the peace of this community preserve our going out and our coming in from this time forth until we meet again. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the 506.